Welcome back, part 6 of building the Prometheus. As previously described in part 5, I'm going to be filling in this area of the engine pods, the engine cowling. It's a detail which I previously described, which I come to the conclusion that it's too heavy and it doesn't necessarily fit in with the general aesthetic of the model in its design. It was a lot of work putting in these scribing lines, but I've come to the conclusion that it's better without, and by filling in this, the model will pretty much look like how the finished CGI rendering looked like in the film. Because if you study the film carefully, especially when the Prometheus collides with the Juggernaut or the engineer's ship, if you motion capture or freeze frame, you can see that the engine pods doesn't have this detail. It's generally quite flat on this compound surface. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I will be using Milliput Superfine White. It's a good version of the product. It's superfine as described. It's almost a porcelain-like quality once it's cured, once it's sat, and sanding it's really quite a pleasure. So I'll be using it for its superfine quality. I'll be using it for it being easy to sand, sculpt and shape, and also psychologically it will blend in with the colour of the resin. So basically, psychologically speaking, it's not going to be too jarring. It's not going to be upsetting in terms of me thinking about what I've done and the mistake that I made in inscribing these units. So it will ease my mind a bit, and I won't be so hard on myself in terms of looking at my error. Basically, it's not going to be poking me in the eye so often. So once that's done and cleaned up, we'll be able to progress with the rest of the build. So let's see how we progress. Looking here, we've got two parts of the epoxy putty, one slightly off-white, the other is pure white. So it's an even amount of the putty, so we want it to be an even amount so it isn't too soft and it doesn't go off too quickly. But that being said, this, when it is mixed, has a relatively short amount of time in which to apply it to the model. It goes off, how can I say, a bit quicker than the other Milliputs. So I'm going to start blending, as you can see here. Excuse the noise and of the gloves and putty, it's quite sticky. I normally do this with my bare hands, but as we're filming today, I do not necessarily want to get this all over the camera. So the aim of mixing the superfine white is not to overdo it. because the more you knead it, the quicker it's going to go off, and we do not want that. It's got to be reasonably soft so you can knead it into those areas where it needs filling, or the areas which I've scribed. Trying to get this into focus. Excuse me. So I've given that good old kneading. I think that's as much as we should do really before it starts getting really hard, or going off, I should say. Now this isn't necessarily going to be easy because it's going to be white on white. Now what am I doing? Just bear with me a moment and I'll be right back. Well, that's interesting. Okay, shall we attempt this on camera? Can we attempt this on camera? I'm not sure that we can. But this is what I'm doing. I'm just going across the surface of the model with the putty. Just getting it in every bit that I've scribed. Don't know if we can see that. Can you see that? Huh. That's not an easy job. Might have to do some of this off camera because it's a bit awkward. But I think you've got the gist of what I'm doing. So I'm going to do the rest of this off camera because it's just a little bit too awkward to achieve else. So we will see you hopefully in a little while. Okay, so I've applied the mini put. It has been roughly applied to the model surface. What I will do now is finesse the application. Mini put at this stage is water soluble. You can use water to smooth out the rough surfaces or to contour. It's really quite a pliable, diverse medium in that context when you add water to it. But the thing you've always got to remember while using mini put is that the more you work it, the more you hasten the setting or the curing time. It cures quite quickly. So basically what I'm trying to say is the more you work it, the quicker it goes off, the quicker the epoxy cures and stiffens. So in that respect you have a very, very limited amount of time to finesse and contour the application without sanding. So the more you can do while it's wet, the less you have to do in terms of sanding when it's dry. So what I'm going to do now off camera is finesse as much as I can with water, and then we'll show you how that looks before letting things stand. So we'll be right back after that. It's been a couple See you in a bit since I've applied the mini-put. Looking at each unit, you can see how I ran out of time in terms of making it nice and neat on one. I've managed to contour and finesse the medium while it was wet. So as I was saying, as you work it, it actually goes off. The epoxy resin begins to cure, and it cures very, very quickly. So I'm going to have a bit of a job to make this neat through sanding. So that's my job. It's going to take a wee while to do this, so hopefully we'll be back in a little while. Right then, where did we leave off? Yes, we left off prepping the engine units. A lot's happened since part 1 of part 6, because this really, technically speaking, is part 2. But let's try and focus here. Come on, you know you want to. Right. So, in part 1 of part 6 we saw me filling in the plated panelling that I had scribed. Well, that panelling was just simply too heavy. I take it back actually with regards to the surface detail on these engine pods. There is a tiled surface, but it's nowhere near as prominent as I made it. I'm not the best person in the world in terms of scribing. Having filled in the mini-put, however, I've discovered that it's left a faint trace of the work that I had done. Now, that to me seems really quite acceptable. I don't think we can pick that up on camera. Let's have a look. Can we? I don't think it's going to happen. Oh. Right, there we go. If I tilt it that way, you can just about faintly make out those markings. Now, it is my hope when I apply primer that this detail will remain, especially with subsequent layers of paint and other applications. I'm hoping this detail will remain. Also, what I've started doing here is installing the engine's intakes. I can't seem to focus this tonight. Probably because I am dead beat. I've been working on another model all day. So, and that's been kicking me in the rear end. But we might do a video about that another time, but not today. But yes, here I've started to insert those intakes. We're just not on the ball tonight in terms of our focusing, are we? Absolutely not. Not very good at all. I'm not sure if this is the light washing things out. It might be that as well. But if you look really carefully, there are lines in the polystyrene plastic that I've applied to the resin. I've also applied some grey or green mini put to the engine cowling. Now these have a layered vent effect which I'm going to hand scry, which is something that's not very easy, to be perfectly honest. It's difficult. So what I might do is actually mark it out in pencil, then go with the pencil so I've got some sort of guidance. But yeah, these engines are really looking good. I have to do something with regards to detailing this section there because it looks pretty bland. I'm not quite sure what to do. Although, that having been said, just let me reach over here a minute. Can anyone guess what this is? No? No one has an idea? It looks like an engine part, doesn't it? Or the insert of an engine part. But it's not. It's a good old fashioned fruit juice top. Yeah, fruit juice top. So I looked at this the other day when my wife had brought them home in the shopping, and I thought, oh hello, this looks interesting. That might work as an engine insert for the Prometheus, because in spite of my research and looking at Ben Proctor's work, I've not seen an interior detail in terms of the engine. So what I thought about doing was perhaps hollowing this out, or hollowing it out in part, and then inserting this inside, which would make very, well, quite decent interior for the engine unit. You can let me know what you think. But I think that actually looks quite decent. I'm really happy with that. The only thing that unnerves me slightly is hollowing this out, because once I've removed that detail, there is absolutely no going back. No going back whatsoever. So if I hollow that out, that means I am stuck if this should go south. But there's something else I want to show you, good people online. Now this, what I'm about to show you might think that I'm, well, quite insane. But let me show you regardless. Now this being an original Fantastic Plastics model, this is the bridge module that the kit originally came with. As you can see, it's a solid block of resin with some detailing with regards to the canopy, which is underneath the carapace of the Prometheus. Now, as I'm a glutton for punishment, and I'm not happy unless I'm suffering, let's be honest, this is what I did to resolve my itching to do something intricate. And well, let's see what I've done. Can you see what that is? Yes? Well, this is the beginnings of my new command module, or bridge. I mocked this up in paper, coated it with sellotape to give it some rigidity. That was Mach 1. This is Mach 2 on a stiffer piece of paper, and the tape simulates glass. Yeah. Originally, I was going to work this out in brass. The brass turned out to be way too stiff. You know, I just couldn't get those sharp corners in. Everything was rounding off when I didn't need it to, because I need straight right angles and other angles that are a multifaceted aspect of this part of the model, part of the ship's design. Here is a Mach 3 prototype. This is actually made out of a very thin piece of styrene stock. As you can imagine, it's really quite a chore to cut out such tiny bits of plastic by hand to make the frame. But made it, I have. So just let me... Oh, can I reach under there? Come on, you do it. You do it. No, I'm going to have to lift her up and take this out. Okay. Now, you might look at this and think I've gone completely round the twist. But this is the final part, or this is the final iteration of my command module. Because the model itself has quirks in it, I had to make this with quirks in it so it would fit where I needed to fit, which is in that cavity there. So that's all been drilled out with a Dremel, and of course it's going to be backlit. There's more work to be done on this. don't know how I'm going to... Oh, go on, drop it. It's only taken 2 days to draw out, cut and glue together and reinforce. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to insert glass, or if I'm going to insert glass at all. One thing I do know, and one thing I do know that I'm capable of, is that I'll be cutting out some brass shutters. The shutters that you see in the beginning of Prometheus as they reach their destination 233, or shall I say LV 233. Now, Fantastic Plastic, in my absence, has re-released this kit. It's in flight mode only, so it doesn't have that posability as this one, the original one. Also, I've been reading up. The new kit has a vac-form transparent bridge. I'd be interested to see what that looks like. If I'd known about that before, I would have contacted Fantastic Plastic to see what this particular part looked like. But I think I'm going to stick with this now. I'm quite happy with it. You can see all the way through to the front of the module. That's a bit quirky there, but you won't see that once it's embedded or mounted into the model. You won't see that at all. I did fancy trying to make it straighter, but I thought, well, no, I'm just fighting against the model in that respect, and I don't think I'm going to particularly win on that foot. Oops. But yes, an absolute glutton for punishment, and that's why I thought I'd do it. My wife is absolutely amazed. Actually, she's a little bit gobsmacked. She thinks I'm insane. Yeah, I'll have to detail in there. I have to create a little flight deck. But anyway, that's that. I don't think there's much more to come on. I don't think there's much to report tonight. Go on, shake everything. And we will be getting back on the horse, so to speak, and I'm going to get you finished before the summer's out. Anyway, with engine modifications and insane cockpit canopies or command module canopies, this is the Prometheus signing off. We'll see you in part 7. Bye for now. Right, let's have a last look at this. This is how the Prometheus looks with the command module in place. Actually, I was thinking while tidying this up, it could be screen printed, not screen printed, it could be 3D printed. That's something for Fantastic Plastic to think about. 3D print your cockpit command module.
But in a time-old tradition, I've done mine the old-fashioned way by making it from scratch. But yeah, it's pretty neat looking, isn't it? Even better once it's all painted up. But there we go. This is Prometheus signing off.